Well, we are here for Tuesday, not Tuesday, Thursday AMA. We are off the rails. The audio did not come through. Woof, woof on that. Sorry, Fizzle. But at least for the production quality you're lacking from me right now, we're gonna upgrade you because we got Scott Connor here to pick up the fact that Fizzle's intro you just saw you couldn't hear. But Scott, man, appreciate you hopping on Thursday AMA. I'm excited for this one. We routed around our days to make sure that we could get you on. Mike's on vacation, but Scott, man, how are you? What's going on with you?
It has been a grind, to say the least, the last week or two. You and I obviously are working on the WoRP series, so we have been spending quite a few hours together pretty much every day talking about WoRP. I'm glad to be here doing an AMA. Should be fun. This is the time to kind of do different stuff. This is the time to get stuff out of the way because once the season gets here, talk about a grind. It's a different kind of grind. It's one you look forward to because you actually have points and results and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, glad to be back. Good stuff. Looking forward to some of the stuff we got from people in the house tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We got people pouring in. Ryan wants me to sing it a cappella. I can't do that, man. That would be doing Fizzle a big disservice. And I definitely haven't had enough to drink to do that. If you want to see someone singing, though, a cappella on this show, it's not AMA, but go back and check out one of those trade shows. Mike gives you a little good exit where he's singing, feeling good. Don't worry, Koopa. We finished 4D in time, man. This is a day where literally since I've been home, just grinding, doing content start to finish till I go to bed. I just told Scott, wolf down a couple pieces of grilled chicken so I could be here kicking it with you guys. Let's see if we got anything good. But Scott, I want to kind of ask you a question. Like right now in this spot, with the Scott Fish starting, it feels like if your league hasn't quite adapted yet, like to me, that's always basically the kickoff of, the redraft and fantasy season, gearing up for that. And I think this is probably the last stop of if there are players and teams in your league that they're still having the youth mindset, like that's about to expire pretty soon. So I'm just curious if there's anything like that you've seen in your leagues. Have you seen a lot of more of the trades, or people are trying to focus on going to more of the redraft and the win now players, or is that something that isn't quite happening in your leagues yet?
No, I think we're definitely here. I actually talked about this on Trades in 5 the other night. I think we're kind of getting to the point now where people have kind of come back from hibernation, from drafts. If they weren't looking at their lineups and stuff back then when they were making draft picks, they're definitely thinking about it now. It's not just Trades in 5 questions, but you get a lot of direct messages, mostly on Twitter. I mean, the DMs just fill up daily with stuff, and I just notice a lot more questions that are geared towards making a run. Should I make this deal? And it's a lot of the same players that people are willing to either acquire or trade away based on exactly what you just said. Popular one that's a couple times a day. Should I trade away Drake London? Man, I need some production. I got one, Drake London for Amari Cooper and Tyler Lockett. It's one I got earlier. I mean, the answer is obviously if you're asking me, and it's funny because my response, I was probably 20 messages deep today answering these types of things because I'm like that. I'll get on Twitter and I'm bored when I'm just sitting there and I'll respond to a bunch of people just because.
Yeah.
But the answer, and I didn't mean to come off like an asshole, but the answer was kind of like, dude, and this is somebody that's been regularly messaging me for probably a year. And
okay.
It was like, you're asking me this question. You obviously follow me. You're asking me for a reason. You know what I mean? If you ask me if you're going to trade Drake London for Amari Cooper and Tyler Lockett, I don't even really care about the settings, the format, where your team is.
Right.
You're asking me that almost for permission so you can go hit accept.
Yeah,
you
man.
don't like the way your projections are coming out. And I'm like, you don't need me to give you permission. Because that's a deal you're probably sitting there going, man, I hope Scott says that one's passable if you're trying to win the title. Whereas I think we all know that's probably not a deal you want to make in July. But if you're asking me and you're feeling it, like, okay.
Yeah.
You already know you're probably going to lose that trade in 6 months. You're going to regret it. But you don't need somebody to tell you that's a good or bad process move, because if you're asking me and you follow us and you're watching content like this, you already know. You already know that's probably not the best use of your pick, but if you want to do it, I have no issue with it. But I'm seeing a lot more of that. It's the, man, I need a running back, or man, I just don't trust this player yet. I'm not sure what their role is going to be. Can I trade it away for points? Now, I'll let you just chime in, but this I think is an opportunity where it might be worth sending some of those deals out the other way, because most of the trade questions I get are geared towards would this pass if I can trade away some potential youth or upside for points. Don't see a lot on the other side where people are wanting to do that right now.
Well, oh man, see, maybe it's because we were working on this Dynasty Mind Warp series. But before I talk about that, I do see, yeah, Mike, you look real good. I know because you're out there in Florida, having a blast. I keep seeing the pictures, and I'm like, man, it looks like he is having a ball. So also, Mike gifted just now 10 South Harmon Fantasy Football memberships. That's being just a member of the YouTube feed. So Mike is feeling good, man. He's feeling good. He's looking good. He's got someone in the chair for him. But yeah, that's what I've actually been thinking about. And Scott, for so long this offseason, I have been looking at, buying players that are dipping in value and selling some of the youth pieces. A lot of because I had so many 23 picks, whether that was via draft picks or young players that I've drafted. Like, how do I leverage out of some of these, right? While that time is good and the value is good. But I think one thing that you just hit on, which is what I was going to get to, is, okay, so let's even say you've done that now, right? Like, I think I'm actually looking, there's a couple times I've already done it, and I'm going to probably look to do some more of it if I can make it happen. Where let's say I've actually tiered up, and I kind of got Stephon Diggs. I didn't have to pay for the tier up, but let's say I got a guy like him or Adams or one of these guys. But now I bought him at a discount, and I can literally flip out for more because people are starting to think about going to win. And so I think you're going to start getting a lot more interest on your guys like that. Cooper Kupp right now. I was asking about a Cooper Kupp last week when I was in New York. And this is about when I realized when I start getting stuff like this, Scott, I'm like, okay, we've hit it. We have hit the point where it's redraft mindset. So I was asking, what do you want for Cooper Kupp? Manager hits me back. I'd be willing to trade him. But I really want to win again this year, and I was in the championship last year, so it's going to cost a lot. I'm okay. That's so arbitrary. It's going to cost a lot. Like, I've seen people tell me that, and they give me a very reasonable offer. So, like, what does that look like for you? He says he wants Garrett Wilson plus, and I'm like, okay, we're there, aren't we? We have officially hit, like, y'all want to go win. Okay, all right. Well, if that's the case, I'm selling my Cooper Kupps. I want the Garrett Wilson plus side of this deal. So it made me think like that. Literally, that type of discussion and those type of things are what I talk about in content. So the fact that happened, and I've been seeing a lot more of that, makes me realize we're here. Like, we're to the point of redraft season, man.
Well, I wonder if it's just this season's class, this 23 class, and maybe just some of the stink that's left on it from what expectations were from 9 months ago compared to where we stand right now. But it's weird because there's always that lull to where, you knew, especially if you're tapped in and you're in tons of leagues, what those picks represent when we get to mid-May. You already know what they are. You've already seen ADP. You've already had drafts. Yet 2 months later, those same players that used to be those picks that everyone knew, the 107 through 110 was going to be Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, you know what you're getting there, Quentin Johnston. Like that was already basically assigned a player in most formats. But I wonder if people were staunch to even move those picks. Yeah. Yet now 2 months later, you come to them with a receiver, even if it's a receiver, like even if you use one of those picks on Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnston. Now that we're closer to the season, what were some of those people expecting to happen with those players between May 10th when they drafted them and July 15th when they're now going, you know what, I'm willing to move that Quentin Johnston if I can get some more solidified production. Yet for the entire offseason, you come to somebody and you're like, the Amari Coopers of the world, they weren't worth the 107 or 108. But now I feel like if you tried to go the other way and buy a guy like Amari Cooper, and even if you got a little greedy and said, I need a second on top of Amari Cooper, right? Sending a Quentin Johnston isn't enough for a lot of people. They're going to go, give me the Amari Cooper side, and I don't really want to pay the tax. I'll do it straight up.
Right.
But even that is tough for some people if they start looking at their team. And, of course, then it turns into, well, you asked for this guy, I don't really like that guy. You're trying to send me Quentin Johnston. That's not the 108 anymore. That's not Quentin Johnston. It's not a flexible draft pick. But it just feels like there's this weird change in the market that happens over these 2 months, do you think there's people that make draft picks and they're actually banking on some of those players getting like some out of control buzz between May and August? And when they don't, they kind of just settle back into a range where it's like, all right, I got to be realistic now on a guy like Quentin Johnston. He's not – his dynasty ADP may say he's a top 30 receiver, but you go out on the market, and in a lot of leagues, he doesn't pull that kind of weight. So you're almost forced back into being like, well, I'm not trading him away now if all I'm getting is DeAndre Hopkins. You know what I mean? So whatever it might be, it feels like it becomes not enough, and you've missed that window of potential hype. And I just don't feel there's been a lot of rookies this year that got drafted and have accelerated in value since May.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just the echo chamber didn't happen or people have gotten smarter, but it does feel like a lot more people are just bought in, especially at the receiver position. Running back, it's obvious, right? Like, I think both of us agree. If running back can't give me a good projection for the upcoming year, it's really hard for me to value them.
Yeah.
But even the receivers, it feels very redrafty. It kind of makes me want to go the other way if I could move some of those guys, like you said. But just it's something that came to my mind in terms of the rookie receivers this year. They all have decent profiles, but it just feels like there hasn't really been any bump or steam for them since May.
Yeah, I think the combination of it being top heavy, really, as far as the really good profiles, and then also none of them went to a spot where they're like completely could walk in. There's a scenario you can paint about this is an alpha from day one, right? Like JSN, even there's DK there. Lockett's still floating around there, right? Addison goes and there's Jefferson. So it's not like one of these guys landed in a top 20 draft pick and has this like, oh, this is a really good landing spot. And then because you haven't seen any of the camp hype yet, right? Like that could be a buzz for some of these guys in camp when maybe they're playing well or whatever happens in camp and they're, Laviska Shenault style. They're Urban Meyer's building the team around him. You haven't seen any of that yet. So to the point you were asking beforehand, I think honestly there are some people that do. They wait and they say, all right, well, I've got this player. I know there's a chance I can sell him buzz. But I also think there's a good handful that just think, hey, this is a young rookie and I'm going to be okay. And they project him to do way more. And then they start realizing they almost don't have a plan, if that makes sense. And then they start realizing closer to the season, well, damn, yeah, Jordan Addison probably isn't going to do that well for the first few months. Well, I got to try to get off of him. And now you're selling at a way big discount if you do that and you buy into a older, crusty guy like Nuke, and maybe that works out for you for a year, but you did not capitalize on value at all. We got some super chats, Scott, so let's get into some of these. No question, just buying a round of bangs for the boys. Hey, Frank, appreciate it. By the way, Scott, let me tell you something, man. I know you won't find it on this channel, but Bang, if you're out there listening, the marketing they're doing on Dynasty Trades in 5, I tried my first Bang, man. I tried it, and pretty good. It's a little very different than the Red Bull taste, but I know you like that personally, and I like the Bang, but man, I've never had it, and the fact that you guys had those videos floating around, I seen Scott in the convenience stores, I'm like, you know what, man, I think I'm going to try one of these. So got to get a sponsorship deal going, man.
No, I'm going to say this. I've officially dumped Bang.
What?
We have broken up. Yep. We have reached out to them numerous times. They have not been responsive. Listen, I live stream only once a week. We don't have time to wait week after week after week while I continue to spend $2.99 to buy those bangs every single day. I'm done, man. I'm done. We've reached out. They haven't responded. I'm moving on. There was a long Twitter thread today about who I should try. So
you know what this is perfect segue to? This is literally, and Scott, maybe we need to kick the series back off here at South Harmon, Mike and I. This is name brand, off brand. We tried the name brand. You don't want a piece of it? Which off brand is going to get the deal? I love what I'm hearing right now.
Yep, we're going to go each week. We're going to go with a different drink. I'll decide probably the day of what I'm feeling. Go get it, crack it open on the stream, and we'll see. We'll snag somebody. We will catch a fish at some point. I don't know when. Don't know how good it'll be, how big it'll be, but we'll catch somebody. And so my services are open because I do. It's probably going to kill me one day, but I probably drink too many energy drinks. But hey, while you're streaming, they're a godsend sometimes when we're doing these 5 or 6 hour straight streams of content in various places. So I'm a free agent.
That's funny. Yeah, Scott's a free agent. I was actually just thinking, like, I wish I had an energy drink right here, right now. Mike super chatting. Oh boy, I should have gotten to this one sooner. Long time, first time. He's in a best ball draft on Underdog. He wants help picking. Look at this. Same for you, Dude Wipes. You're on effing notice. Clock's ticking for the shit show. I don't know. I didn't get a question really from Mike as far as like who's on the board. I mean, those underdog drafts, they happen so quick. You're not probably going to get us to have the actual context to answer it on stream. But I appreciate the $20 super chat, man. Throwing away the money, because each super chat here, I think, what is it? They cut like, YouTube gets like 30, 45% depending on where you put it through. So, reinvesting that money into the brand. I love seeing it.
Yeah, that shout out to Clay who made that mistake. I think he threw up a $50 super chat, and then he realized that YouTube takes 45% of his money that he throws into his own channel.
Hey,
yeah, it's probably not the most efficient way to send money through. It'd be a good money laundering scheme.
Yeah,
if you wanted to pay an extreme rake
right.
to launder the money, you could probably get away with it. You still got to find a place to put it once it gets to that big South Harmon YouTube account, but it's not a bad strategy.
Yeah, I think I think this one's just the Mike put it in the chat somewhere here. I think this is the UV talking right now, but the UV Blue he likes to drink. Is there any content creator in the Destination Devy community who loves Kyle Pitts as much as Jay Rich hates him? Would love to hear a counter on his takes on his new show. What do you think here, Scott? I don't think. I mean, last year I could say yeah. I mean, I got him right here. I had a whole. If you could see how big this sticker was, I mean, you would know where I was on him last year and how disappointed I was. But I don't know. I mean, Jay Rich does have some strong opposing take and hate on Pitts. I don't know that you find someone on the opposite end of the spectrum anymore that loves him that much. Do you?
So we just put out a quick hit video. I think TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts on Kyle Pitts. And I did get caught kind of going through a Kyle Pitts rant because we got a question. And I did start coming around on Kyle Pitts the more you look at it. And it's not probably for the reason that people would think. Because I do think you're making a bet. You're simply making a bet on the situation changing. But what he's done is he's done stuff that no tight ends have done. And people don't like to hear that because then they go, well, you know what? That's not translating to fantasy points, right? But if you look at his target share, he's top 3 at tight end, which is sticky year to year. You just need the situation or efficiency or volume to follow. And then you look at just his prototype. Just having a long conversation with Ray about this. Like, dude, he's still 6'6", 255, 260. They don't build tight ends like that anymore. You're starting to see, last couple years, you're starting to see all these tight ends come out. What do they look like, Adam? 6'3", 240. That's not bad.
Right.
That's the new era tight end, though. And that's the
Kincaid,
guys that are
right?
getting Kincaid, Sam Laporta. I mean, most of them that people are starting to like for fantasy, Chig, Greg Dulcich, like a lot of them are
hybrids.
They're
really.
They're this tweener tight end, which you have to be creative to turn those guys into full-time tight ends as well. Now, are some of them going to get there? Yes. I think this is going to be a huge season. Because if you go through the top like 24 tight ends in Dynasty, you damn near half of them look like that, right? Like you have a lot of guys that we're banking on that you look at their profile and you go, okay, that guy's 6'3.5", 242 pounds. You don't really hear anything about their blocking skills, which a lot of people think that's good until it takes them off the field. And when it takes them off the field, that's when you start being unable to hit some of those metrics that you're talking about Kyle Pitts has already hit. The problem with Kyle Pitts is obvious. It's the same thing that has hurt many other players in the past that you have to make a bet on. You need his situation to change. It's that simple. But let's just say you could pull him out and stick him in like Minnesota's offense, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's got Justin Jefferson there. He's got some other weapons there, but you now said that the efficiency they're going to pass the ball is going to be in the top 10 and the volume's going to be in the top 5. Would you be really interested in Kyle Pitts at that point? If you told me you're projecting him for a 19% market share of 625 attempts, and those attempts are going to rank in the top 10 of the league in terms of efficiency, you'd go, wait a second. If I do that math, that puts him around 125, 130 targets because he's shown he's capable of doing that based on how he's already fit into an offense. So if he continues to do it, we're looking at another year where, and Jay Rich broke this down awesome on his first show that he did. You're looking at a season where he may hit all of these marks. 25% targets here. His yards per route run, awesome. But you're going, he had 97 targets. And you're like, that sucks. That hurts my fantasy team. So there's going to become a point where it's going to be like, I'm sick of waiting So just acknowledge what you're buying if you buy into Kyle Pitts. You're buying in somebody where you need the situation to change, period. It can't just be Desmond Ridder gets better, Arthur Smith evolves. You're going to need to see probably a complete overhaul. So you have to basically ration in your head, what are the odds you think that's going to happen? And how does that happen? What does that look like? And honestly, it's probably we're going to have to eat another season of a terrible team, a terrible offense. Arthur Smith gets fired. They change quarterbacks. You know what I mean? You want to root for that. This cannot be the Falcons went 10-7, man, and it looks like they may stick with this for another year. Otherwise, you're going to look at a team that looks a lot like DJ Moore's rookie contract with the Panthers, where you're like every year, his peripherals are awesome, but the team doesn't follow. And that's a legit thing. People are going to get sick of it. Whether they're sick of it now, they'll be more sick of it after this year if it continues.
Yeah, I also think the points on Pitts, though, like if you look at his if I was going to give a bullish take on Pitts, now I think everything you said pretty much is I'm in line with everything you're saying. The one thing, though, is I think we have to acknowledge in his rookie season where he was phenomenal, right?
Hell yeah. Yep.
What did not
ungodly.
Yeah, the reason everyone's so hype on him last year is because what he did in his rookie season was outrageous. It made no sense how good he was. And the crazy part, though, Scott, about that, now I know it's a different offense, different situation, but realistically, like I know you're talking about 97 targets is what he had 110 targets, 1,000 yards. The craziest part about that whole thing was the majority of his production came in 3 games. And not just that. He had 1 touchdown on 110 targets. Now, you will see that he doesn't have like this crazy high red zone target share and all that. But I think the argument would be that if he's healthy for the full season, positive TD regression can come. And then also that he may not be rivaling, Andrews and Kelsey and the truly elite guys. But I think this year there's a scenario where, just because when you look at the metrics that matter, I mean, you're talking about, in the NFL at tight end last year, including all the guys that we know were great. Kelsey, number 1 in target rate, almost 35% target rate. His ADOT's really great. Deep targets, number 1. Like it's littered with really good stats that you want to chase. To your point, though, that the offense just doesn't reward people. But I think there's a scenario where you kind of meet the two in the middle as far as his rookie year and last year, and that maybe there's more touchdowns to be had. Like it wouldn't be crazy to see the guy have 5 or 6 TDs, right? And you pile that upon meeting the 2 seasons in the middle. Let's say it's 850, 900 yards. Problem was that if that's the case, you're looking at more like a tight end 6, 7, 8-ish than you are looking at an elite tight end. But at least there, you can start telling yourself the story as the situation changes, and he, isn't locked into this one situation for his whole career. I think you could see like Kyle Pitts getting closer to that value, which is ridiculous because you'll probably get some spike games. Just given the way he plays, you're going to get some serious spike games out of his game too.
I'm going to throw some numbers at you. I'm just going to explore to everybody how good Kyle Pitts has been. So in the last 2 seasons, so since he took the field, right, since his rookie year, target share is actually higher than I thought. I had said the other night it was 20.2. It's actually 21.8% for his career.
Right.
The only guys higher, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews over the last 2 years. Mark Andrews ridiculous, 27%. I mean, that's a whole other argument. People say they're down on Mark Andrews this year. You know what I mean? Like if anything, what he's done in his career tells you that he's going to bully every other receiver on that team versus the other way around. Like they're going to hurt him, right?
Yeah.
Targets per out run, Kyle Pitts 4th in the last 2 years. Yards per out run, Kyle Pitts 5th over the last 2 years. Team air yard share, Kyle Pitts 2nd. The only guy better than him in every single one of these categories is literally Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. And that's it. Now, the problem is people expected Kyle Pitts to be tight end 1 after his rookie year. They basically said, you know what, we have a unicorn level player that's already being valued as tight end 1. So we expect tight end 1 production. But I think a lot of those people probably don't do season-long projections. They don't understand some of these numbers. I don't care. I mean, this might be controversial. I don't care how good Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are. You put them on the Falcons, they're not threatening to be wide receiver 2, 3, 4. They're just not.
Sure. Right.
They're not. They're going to do the most they could have done with what they can earn themselves, right? Both of them probably go out there, get 30, 35% target share, and you're like, holy shit, these guys are awesome. But then the fantasy points aren't going to follow.
Right.
So you do have to acknowledge that quarterback efficiency and volume together drives the skill players and what their ceilings are going to be. And I think that's the flaw with Kyle Pitts. You expected him just to be, okay, he doesn't have the Lamar Jackson offense. He doesn't have the Patrick Mahomes offense, right? He doesn't have TJ Hawkinson's offense like he had last year. That's what's missing. That's it. That is it. If he were to literally go to one of those teams tomorrow, you would be like, all right, you can bump him right up to tight end 1, no problem.
Well,
so that makes me say, like, hey, I want to have 10% Kyle Pitts if and when that ever happens, and I'm willing to continue to take a shot or two in a league every year to build that up until it happens. Now, there's going to be a point where, you missed out on the window to cash out, and I think that's the biggest lesson from this is how awesome would it have been if you cashed out on all those Kyle Pitts at the 2-3 first-round picks that he's going for? Because now you go, you know what? I can build up my shares over the next 2 years at 70% of that cost. And I played his career exactly how you'd want to play his career, right?
Yeah. The thing is, though, like what's hard to see about it, because I agree with that point, but what's hard to see about it is the fact that like he did that with not a good quarterback situation. He did that in an offense that wasn't good, right? And that's why he didn't score touchdowns. So there's just this baked in, well, he's an extremely young tight end. Like that looks – people – basically the problem was people were assuming that was going to be his floor. And you can't necessarily assume that was his floor. We were all baking in like he could only get higher when the reality is like he could get lower. But then really what happens too, that he could go lower than the floor and the injury, the combination of those two things really destroyed the unicorn market that he once had. And to your point, there was nowhere to go really but down. Unless the only way he was going to go up is if he actually rivaled Kelsey in points per game last year. Then you have something crazy that we could that's a totally different discussion. But Mike's going to probably lose it if I don't at least answer this question. I found out that it's a long draft. Here I am thinking it's a short one. So the question is Ramondre Jacobs, DK Brees, Mandrews, or Joey B. Help. He started with Chase and Pollard.
Well, I'm not taking another running back. Unless you really want to get spicy, because going 3 straight running backs. Oh, no, he went Chase Pollard.
No, Chase and Pollard, yeah.
Yeah, Chase Pollard.
I mean, even then, knowing that it's Chase and Pollard, do you really want to take Jacobs and Ramondre here, I guess is my question.
Not Jacobs, no. I mean, Ramondre, you could consider Ramondre. I think it's got to be between Ramondre, Mark Andrews, and Burrow.
I personally would rather take –
how you want to structure your team.
I would rather take Mark Andrews or Burrow personally. I think Burrow's the one here, especially because I can stack it with Chase, that it's one of those times where I'll take the quarterback around this range. Typically, I like to wait a little later. But if I already have Chase and I'm trying to win a tournament that's going to be really hard to, is it actually – no, it's just it's a regular best ball draft. It's not the big one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the – I don't do a lot of – I've only done probably half a dozen BBM for drafts already. So I'm not in it as deep as a lot of others. But it is interesting, just as a concept from – somebody that likes the theory of, you're playing X amount of entries in a tournament that's going to have 670 some thousand entries, right?
Yeah.
Like
right.
how many starts look like this, right? Where somebody went Chase, running back, Joe Burrow. How do you differentiate your team to start like that when it's pretty chalk to stack Chase and Burrow? I mean, I don't know what the total stacks are, but there's going to be, I'm guessing, a large percentage of teams that did this exact same thing. So it's like, how do you zig?
I guess there it would be like this gives me an upside to get to the dance, and then how you differentiate yourself is going to be making your next several picks and hoping that you didn't have somebody take everything else that you did. Otherwise, you didn't differentiate. I mean, if this is just one of these 12-team leagues where it's you're drafting against 12, there's a payout at the end. I think I take the stack here, especially there.
Have a plan, Mike. Come on, Mike. Have a plan.
Mike's plan is us because he's been drinking, Scott. So we are the plan, buddy. We're on $20 super chat.
You laid out the plan. Take Joe Burrow.
I would take Burrow. If you don't like Burrow there, I would go Andrews. But I think I'm taking Burrow first, personally. All right, let's get to. We got a couple other super chats, and then all right, let's see. So Jay, we gave you what we needed to there. All right, Marlon is the next super chat. Okay, in a 12-team, 1-quarterback lineup league, I have 5 24 firsts coming off of a championship. Wow. Wow. Rebuilder has offered me his 24 first using WoRP. It's 101. Oh, so using the League Simulator. For 3 of my 24 first. Am I crazy taking it? Nah. If the team is truthfully like locked in, having a real chance at the 101 top 3, I think in one quarterback, Scott, for me anyway, I want that premium asset. Like I could care less about those 3 other 24s personally, unless there's, of those 3, you're looking at the simulators telling you 2 of them can be a top 3 pick as well. That's the only chance I don't send this for the 101.
Well, I posted it today, the WoRP chart for the draft picks, and you can see where it kind of starkly drops off right around the 106 and 107, and that's in Superflex.
Right.
And a lot of times that's just dependent on how many quarterbacks get into the range where they're going to fire to be first-round dynasty picks. Whether people like them or not, if a quarterback goes in the first round, anybody that has a first-round pick is kind of pumping their fist, you know what I mean? Like it helps the value of my 109 if there's 4 Superflex quarterbacks that go in the first. Even if I don't like them, it helps because it's just going to push another player, gives me better options. In single QB, yeah, you're probably betting on what, 2 to 3 desirable skill players where it's like gotta have them, can move them on the market for a lot more flexibility if I have that 101 or 102 versus 105, 108, 110. So it's a gamble. My only pushback on Marlon's question would be, is that the best you can do for it? Is there someone that's willing to trade you a Jefferson or Chase for 3 firsts or Bijan for 3 firsts? Now, they may not. But if you could get that, I'd rather do that than gamble that it's the 101. But if it's, let me ask you this. If that's not the 101 and it's let's say he says it based on the simulator, it's a 60% chance to be the 101.
Okay.
And that's part intuition from Marlon where he's going like, okay, this manager that has this pick isn't that smart. I'm not sure what he's even going to do with these 3 firsts.
Yep.
Okay. 101 or 102. But someone comes to you and says they'll give you Jalen Waddle, A.J. Brown, or C.D. Lamb for that pick, for those 3 firsts in a 1 QB. Are you doing that before you would do the
A.J. Brown, Jalen
101?
Waddle, C.D. Lamb?
Yep.
C.D. I would probably prefer, yes. I would do C.D.
Okay, so the other 2, would you hesitate if you could get the shot at the 101 or 102?
Knowing that he just won it is the reason that I'm a little less willing to do that. Like, he's saying I just won the title and I have all these picks, right? So that's like the perfect scenario.
So
and
you're
like
getting real frisky then, huh? You're willing to gamble on the pick being the home run then.
And it's not just that, like, Jalen Waddle in this format is obviously, I think one thing I have to say, this is about players over picks typically, but in that scenario, 1 or 2, I think that's where you can leverage up that you already have a good team and not have to go down the road of Jalen Waddle possibly not being the biggest difference maker in this league. I think he's still very good. I'm just meaning, like, for CeeDee Lamb, absolutely. Would I still do it for Waddle or for A.J. Brown? Sure. I'm just a little more hesitant. I'm thinking a little more about playing this home run upside of Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Having a chance to contend and dangling, now I got Marvin Harrison Jr., that makes league mates want to quit and do crazy things, is the reason I say that. It's almost like a second level of why I want to do that, right? Like if you have winning and the next 101, that just makes people want to scream.
Well, I got to give Marlon credit because this is the type of question that I think a lot of people don't think about when they have a good team. They don't look at ways that they can kind of gamble in the short term, knowing that even if he loses this trade, let's say he trades away the 104, 106, and 110, and all he got was the 103. And you're kicking yourself going, man, I probably missed that tier of elite players by 1 pick.
Yeah, you do.
And you're kicking yourself. But the gamble when you are the dominant squad in a league, a lot of times people take the approach of, I have the best team or I have a top 2 or 3 team. I'm flowing with assets. I got a lot of trade commodities. My roster's built the way that I want. And a lot of times they're afraid to break that up, right? They think, oh, man, I have a good team. I can't trade anything that makes my team good, so I can't trade any current points. But I also want to hold on to a lot of my future dart throws into terms of draft picks like this. And sometimes you're afraid to make that big move. When you just nailed the thought that I was having was, okay, I have 3 random firsts next year. It's going to be able to add me 3 fringe starter level players. What helps me more as a dominant squad? That, or I got Marvin Harrison Jr. in the bag.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, which one is the league going to go, how the hell did the dominant squad now have the 101? How does the dominant squad add Bijan? They're not as scared if you're adding Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, and Zach Charbonnet.
Right.
Helps your team. It gives you a lot of flexibility. But I don't think a lot of people look at their excess and go, what are ways I can kind of maybe ding my leverage or ding my points right now? But if it hits, that's where you start to put a stranglehold on the league if you end up hitting some of those trades. And it's sometimes you trade away points or picks to your competition. And you take the gamble, right? That they're going to be wrong. And in the future, because I'm guessing this doesn't hurt his ability to contend, right?
And that's the thing. That's the thing too. And Koopa says, why spend the 324s now to gamble? Now, I think there's a big thing that needs to be talked about here. Where if this is Superflex, I'm not doing it, right? Like, there's such a different mindset in the one quarterback and how the picks are valued. Not that I play in it, but I literally have a coworker that is at my desk daily, Scott, asking about one QB that he's in at work, and I'm not in the league. And it's literally today, the same conversation. He wants to get Bijan, and he has a pick that Dynasty Daddy and our league simulator says locked into top 2 or 3. And I'm like, listen, I'd even attach to that pick because it's not a locked 101. It could be, but it's not. I'd attach a couple players that have value. Christian Kirk types. Attach 3 of those guys to get them off of your roster and go have Bijan locked and loaded. Because if that's not Marvin Harrison Jr., if it's 103, like, you would be killing yourself to not have Bijan right now. In this type of a league, it's different. I want to have the premier players that are both hammers and have dynasty value. And if you could lock up 101 after winning the title next year again, I mean, that just it's so different. It's such a different market in this league, I guess is the best way to say it.
Well, and just to your point, if you catch 3 average picks in a Superflex league, you get the 105, the 107, and the 110. I feel totally confident going into an offseason with those 3 picks in a Superflex, just knowing where the tiers of players are going to be. Am I going to be disappointed if I don't get a top 4 pick, top 3 pick? Yeah. But it just feels like you can be wrong on thinner margins if you make this trade in Superflex, and you can also be wrong, I'm guessing, if the league, and this is where you have to know your league mates, you have to know how smart they are, how they've played this league in the past. In a lot of our Superflex leagues, if you have 3 random firsts in Superflex, there's a lot more traction you can move with during the season with those picks. 1 QB, if someone sees it's a 1 QB and this is the 7-0 squad, that pick almost kind of goes down to obscurity during the season. Do you know what I mean? Everyone knows It's going to be the 110, 111. It's worth nothing. It's worth like a spot starter at best. So you probably waited too long to trade it at that point.
That's what I've seen too, is that in the 1 QB, just by the way the market in that league and other leagues that I get asked questions on works, is what's viewed as a late first is viewed as nothing, right? It's hard to explain, but that's just the way it is. Appreciate the super chat. Just saying what up to the both of you. Props. Looking forward to this duo. I just need that intro, even if it's the outro tonight. So I'll tell you what. Hopefully the audio will kick in. I'll try it, man. We get a super chat that says hit the intro for the outro because we didn't get the audio. I got you. We can do that. If that's the question, 1,000% I got you. All right. Great content, fellas. Adam, what's your go-to whiskey, scotch, bourbon that does not kill your wallet? It's harder to find. Sazerac Rye is my my absolute favorite drink. Normally, I'm actually out of it right now. Currently, this one does a little bit, but if you can find it, Basil Hayden Toast is what I'm drinking right now. Won't kill the wallet. They're like, they're really good bourbons and ryes that aren't going to break the bank. They're under $40 a piece for a bottle. So those will be my 2 that what I'm drinking now, and normally Sazerac Rye is what I have. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we got a couple more, Scott. We'll get to some other questions maybe eventually, but right now super chats are killing it. 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium, so it's a 2-point tight end premium, Scott. We're starting 11, including the 2 tight ends. Oh, so it's a 2-point per a 2-point premium with 2 tight ends. Young team looking to compete in the next 2 to 3 years. Would you trade Kittle for Devontae Smith? Scott, you know what's crazy? This is one of those now where I used to answer this question and just talk about it, but like, to me, this is one of those where I would actually want to look at the WoRP first. Like, is that not where your head goes now, too?
It did. I was actually refreshing it to see if I can pull up the 2 PPR just to look at it. My gut feeling says, and I guess here's the thing I have to clarify with Mr. McRib. Love the name, by the way. in Dynasty, I never really want to say I want to compete in 2 to 3 years. Why can't I compete next year? Am I that far off? If you're telling me I'm truly 2 years away, like truly 2 years away, like a team where you go, I just have no assets.
Then you got to take the trade, right?
You got to do it because even if Devontae Smith isn't going to help you compete in 2 years, because to be fair, in 2 years, he's a 26, 27-year-old receiver that has probably never had a top 10 season. So the market, he's going to be in the, you hope he hangs on and he's in the Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin type of range where people know he's good, right? They know he's a top 24 receiver. But that, you can very easily project where Devontae Smith's going to be in 2 to 3 years from a value perspective. But I think if you're truly that far off, he gives me there's a conduit to moving him quicker in the next year or two than George Kittle. Like this almost feels like this could be the window for Kittle.
Could you pull it up on Dynasty Daddy?
I'm actually looking at the WoRP right now with
Are you okay?
Receivers and running backs and a lineup 2 PPR. I mean, I'll just say last year you had Evan Ingram, Dallas Goedert right around 0.8 WoRP, 0.7, 0.6 to 0.8. Let's just call it somewhere in there.
Okay.
And you had Devontae Smith himself at 0.97. So even from a WoRP perspective,
it makes sense.
It still favors the receivers. It favors the receivers even in the 12 to 24 range, which is probably where they're going to land if Smitty stays what he is, for 2 more years. So I think unless the league is offering me something else, I wouldn't get greedy, especially if I am a year away. Feels like Smitty is a guy that I have a chance to maybe flip for first and a second or something like that down the road if I want to cash out, whereas you could legitimately get stuck on Kittle, especially if you've kind of shopped him around already, like I'm guessing he has.
Yeah, the start 11 does actually matter here, where like start 11, there's enough starters to where Smitty has a very, very solid market in this league, right? Like it's not like a start 9 where if he fell down the path, maybe his market wouldn't be as great. So I'm with you. I think here's my only problem with the super chat is actually not anything other than what you said. Like I think I have done a full nuclear rebuild, Scott. I'm talking I have torn a team down in a startup to absolute nothing, to the studs. And I got that team ready to go in 2 years. Like that team had no assets other than basically picks. Like I purposely traded everything away. So I would just the only pushback I would give is, even if you're young, like why can't you look to at least compete next year or see next year? Like I don't think you have to go into next year with the mindset of I want to rebuild again. Like maybe you end up doing it if it doesn't all click. But next year, I think if you do enough of these moves, you could be looking at a situation where you're going to see what happens and decide next year. You don't have to guarantee yourself another year of rebuild, I guess would be my pushback.
Well, without knowing his team, if it's truly 2 to 3 years, then we probably lack some of the other assets. Like we probably are shy on quarterbacks. We're probably trying to tank some of our picks all the way down to the bottom. So in that case, like if you look at a team and you say, I can't win for 2 years because of the way this league is set up, give me what is the closest to being able to move for something bigger, better, more efficient when I get it. And it's probably not George Kittle. It's probably not Devontae Smith either.
Yeah.
So you almost got to trade for him. Kind of hopefully there's a window where you can put him on the block and you're able to kind of get one of those sweetheart deals where maybe you get a Zay Flowers in a first or something like that. If he starts out hot, like something like that could really push you forward. You're probably never getting that with Kittle.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. If you're truly like stripped down to the studs, you don't have much. Smith has a scenario where in a league like this, he booms, and that offense is good enough to where he really booms. You could basically get 2. You can net 2 first, and that would be the move. That would be the play.
That's the goal. Is to eventually split this to where you end up with 2 pieces. If you're in a start 11, truly I'm 2 years away. You're going to need multiple pieces. Because
no one's paying 2 first for Kittle even in that league unless like he starts the year off with 3 monster Kittle weeks. Like it's so less likely even in that league that 2 first is what Kittle demands. So Blacksmith Honey Bourbon is what you meant. Corey, hopefully you bring it to the expo so I can try it because I still have yet to have it. So I don't doubt you. Just need to try it. All right. We got through the super chat, Scott. I don't even know at this point where to start with questions. I'm going to go and see if I can just find a good one. Let me ask you this then, Scott, on that same topic with the Devontae Smith thing. Is he – I think there's a mold of receivers, especially with the market push of receiver. Is he for you someone that's overvalued or is he somebody – because he's going in like the third round of startups? Or is he somebody that you think can be a good staple in your lineup, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and you think is appropriately valued?
Thought about this because I think everybody kind of lumps the Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle into the same range as like they're not the top receiver on their team, but how do you value them on the market?
Right.
And you immediately go to, okay, tell me a scenario where, because we've seen all three of those guys literally without the better guy on their team at some point. Now, they were all rookies, so it's really not fair to be like that's the best they could do without the other guy on the roster.
True.
I think if you look at all three of them, and we've done a lot of stuff over on DD with this. I did a show on it. Ray, you've heard Ray talk about the Trinity before, right?
Yeah, right.
And honestly, when you put all three of them, Higgins, Waddle, and Smitty, into that Trinity, the one that is closest to his peer on his own team is Smitty and A.J. Brown. They are the closest together. Now, I'm not saying he's close to A.J. Brown, but the gap between them, you could make an argument that if things go south for A.J. Brown, he gets hurt, falls back for some reason, Smitty is the most likely of the three, I think, to jump into that role. Now, then you evaluate the fact that Tyreek could be gone in a couple of years, and Waddle's market could get pumped up a little bit. Like, it kind of leads you to the conclusions of you want to have, and this is, it hurts as a Bengals fan, but I kind of want to have a little Waddle and Smitty over Higgins just for that reason. I think they're literally all very similar from a WoRP perspective, though. So I don't really care which one I have. I'm going to play the market. If for some reason the market favors one over the other, that's the one I'll take. But it's just interesting to kind of look at which route do they go over the next couple of years. Because here's the one thing that people talk about all the time. You do not want any of the three to change situations. I would rather have Smitty, Waddle, and Higgins where they are right now than, oh, man, one of them chased the bag and went to the Texans. Because it doesn't automatically mean because they go somewhere else and they're the number one that they produce any better. I mean, these guys are already producing top 12 numbers where they are now.
Right.
With contingency upside that, hey, if the other guy misses 4 or 5 weeks even during a season, those numbers go even higher. So
yeah, I could argue that Smith is in the best situation he's ever going to see, where there's a true alpha target hog on the other side that commands so much on the defense that he can really exploit his true upside as far as him being that deep threat and not seeing double coverage or shadows even that often, right? So that's where that's an underrated point about those three guys is people may view them as betas or whatever. They can't go higher, but in that situation outside of injury, they're not going to probably lose a ton in value because the situation's so good.
I mean, you put Smitty right now on the Titans. Are you more excited about him?
No. Personally not.
But that's what it would look like from a, man, somebody really needs a receiver, so we are going to go pay one of those guys to be the guy. You know what I mean? And now you're sitting here going, damn, he's going to get 170 targets probably on whatever new team he goes to, or he's going to get 30% of the market share. But then you're sitting there going, man, how good's the quarterback? How many times are they going to throw it? Because it's probably a bad team. So I think that's the weird thing is it feels like in 2 years you're going to want to make bets on all three of these guys, Higgins, Waddle, and Smith. Which one in 2 years could you see yourself going, you know what, I'm glad I bought when he was wide receiver 12 because now he's wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. Because I think they're all good enough where they could be there if the other guy wasn't. But it's also, you're getting a nice floor from them. Like, it feels like these guys are just locks to finish top 24 because their situations are good. So
yeah. I mean, Ewok Village says Bengals fan here also. I'm not big on Higgins at cost right now. He also says that he can't go much higher, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where, like, at cost, I could understand why maybe you don't like it in a startup or something. But reality is he's a very solid staple in your lineup. It's just, in that offense, it's probably unlikely he's going to be a, top 10, like in a shallow league, like if it's lineup start 9, he's probably not a difference maker, right? He's more of a wide receiver 2 flex type than he is like a hammer per se. So that would be my thing there. All right, so Dynasty Daddy was in the building. I don't know if you saw. I put the wave up there.
I did. Shout out to Jeremy.
Shout out to Jeremy. What's up, man? All right, inbox. Man, Scott, we got the 1 QB questions coming in today, man. Is that JB over there? I mean, wow. All right, 1 quarterback, 12 teams, start 9, 9 tight. Oh my goodness, and 9 tight end premium. Kittle plus 24 first for Mandrews. WoRP is basically the same. Keep Mandrews as my hammer, but process says Kittle. I'm torn.
Hmm.
This is
So
a
I'm gonna
good.
lay
This
out
is a good question.
and it's funny because we just recorded a Mind Warps series, kind
With
of going
non-tight
through
end
this
premium, yeah,
non-tight end premium. We didn't do one QB. We're not that. We didn't go that low. But the discussion was a lot of times like what I even asked you, sneak preview. I even asked you, what do you pay to quote unquote like upgrade to the very very top? You know what I mean? Like this
yeah,
would
you
be a
did.
league
You
where
asked me that.
if you said okay, I'm paying from Hawkinson to go up to Kelsey, and you're basically willing to say I don't care about the age, the profile, nothing. You know what I mean? You're literally chasing WoRP, which is what this question is. Man, part of me says after our conversation earlier about the picks, if this is one of those picks where you think it's just going to fall into that dead zone, that dead range of the league's just going to think it's shit, what are you really paying for
That's
an upgrade? Andrews is the best tight end in the league besides Kelsey. The numbers back it up. He's more efficient. He's better on all the per snap, per route marks. I mean, you could argue in a lot of ways he's actually better than Kelsey. He's just been on the Ravens and Kelsey's been on the Chiefs. But it's an upgrade going from Kittle to Andrews. You're gaining 2.5 years and you're getting the better tight end. If this is a piss away first, man, I think I take the Andrews side. It's a big move. It's a move where in 2 weeks or 2 months you could look back and go, I wish I would have fired that first elsewhere.
yeah.
Because Kelsey's wide or Andrews is wide tight end 3, Kittle's tight end 5. And you're willing to – the thing is you're willing – when you have Kittle in this league, what are you willing to do with Kittle? Just ride the wave every week, right?
Sure. 1,000%.
You know where his WoRP's going to be. It's going to end up probably tight end 5, 6, and you're just going to ride the I'm going to get 6 awesome games from him, and the rest might be a little frustrating. But you're just going to ride it. So
that's where this is tough for me because I think
what
the
do
thing
you do?
Well, here's the thing. In Superflex, I'm taking this. One quarterback makes it so much tougher because I need to know the market of the league. So, for example, if this is a standard one quarterback market where these first that are not guaranteed to be early, like they don't have a market, like I'm basically for a year just letting you have Andrews. Like
He says contender, so if it's his own pick and the league already looks at him as like the league favorite, you're saying you're shipping your first, right? You're paying for the marginal upgrade.
What I was going to actually say, yeah, because I agree with that. The problem is with Kittle, what makes it actually tough, though, is I think on a week-to-week basis, like Andrews probably is more steady. Like he's not going to probably have the bust weeks as often. But I think Kittle, when he booms those 6 weeks, like in WoRP, offers just as much as all the other guys, truthfully. So like you're just playing the variance more so with Kittle. So to me, it's if I could make that. This is what I want to say. If I could find a way to make that 24 first, either attach it to something else and go buy a legit starter, I'm good. Or if I could get that to be not a first, but it's a player that has true starter potential. Like I'm trying to think the range here because it's got to be so high in start 9 like this. But that's what I'd rather have. Like a player that truthfully has more value than the 24 first that's locked at late and you could trade for something. Because I'm okay with the process here. I just think that first, if it's mid to late, locks you into really gaining nothing. You kind of get stuck with it. I guess that's the problem if you're a true contender.
Ryan, I think here's the thing that we talked about this on the WoRP series, Adam, was this is a move where you can make sense to trade the first for Andrews and get the upgrade because there's going to be probably a difference in WoRP between the two. But it's like you get to a flea market and you only have like $50.
But he has Andrews though. That's the thing. Does he take the Kittle side?
Oh yeah, I see it. Keep Andrews as his hammer. Yeah, look at it this way. The tiebreaker for me is going to come down to exactly what you said. It's not that I can acknowledge what this trade is, right? What's the opportunity cost? What else could I do with the first in my league? If you're telling me this is going to be a dead league, that my first is already being viewed as one that nobody's going to want, then I could see why somebody would trade it away. And in that case, I wouldn't accept the trade. Yes. I don't want to be sitting on a pick that the league is already looking at going, I'm not giving you anything for that pick. So, yeah, now he has Kittle, and you're thinking, can he attach the first to another player and go buy an even bigger WoRP advantage? If he says that answer is probably no,
then I don't want it.
Point in doing the trade, right?
We're on the exact same page here. He also says both contenders. Ryan, I think literally you have to answer the question based on what we gave you. If you know the market in these leagues in this league especially, is that you can't get that first to move. Like you can't move your own first, and then you're going to have this late first as well that people view that way, and you can't move either of them. You're sitting on 2 firsts as a contender that don't move. That's not what I want to do here, because what you'll end up having to do is move those for non-hammers, which you don't really want to start and don't help you at all. And you've given up although it's not crazy in WoRP, you've given up the advantage in position from Andrews to Kittle. So I think it's all about how that first moves, and you're the only one that can answer that question.
Unless he can take those 2 firsts and go to one of the frisky fraud teams
yeah.
and say, hey, can I give you my 2 firsts for your potential coin flip top 3 pick, right? If you can do that, you got to know your market, though. We can't say whether you could or couldn't do that in your league.
That's literally it, man. It's so hard to know the market. If you could do that, which is what I'm talking about, if you can basically go buy another player with that plus something else, I'm all in. I'll take the difference in Kittle to Andrews if I can make that happen. 12 teams start 11, no tight end premium again, man. No tight end premium night. We literally last night just recorded no tight end premium 2 episodes, so we're top of mind with this. Sitting on 324 first, one of them projected to be 101 via League Sim. It won't be worse than 103. That does change things for me in a Superflex, Scott, honestly. With the 2 quarterbacks and with Harrison, I've been hesitant to move it, but feel like I'm holding too tight. Thoughts? I mean, there's not really much context here, though. I would move it, but I just need to know what you're buying.
I'll just say this. We've seen it the last couple of years, and I don't think it's going to change in Dynasty, is if you have a top 3 pick, regardless of the class, generally it's going to hold a lot of weight on the open market, just the way things have been trending. Now, could there be exceptions? Yes. Could there be exceptions where there's classes where it's, damn, the 106 and 107 hold exceptional value as well? Yes. But if you're sitting here and we have to take people's words when they say easily top 3, right? Projected 101. Like, we have to literally take that for they know better than we do because we don't have the information in front of us.
Right.
But if you're telling me I have a top 3 pick next year and I look at everything I would look at, I run the sims, I look at the team, I run a 6-point analysis on that roster, and I go, that there's no possible way that is not a top 3 team in terms of where their pick's going to land. I'd move it. But what I'm aiming is I'm looking at about the top 20 players in terms of startup value. And that's where I'm aiming. If you're telling me you're gonna give me 2 pieces that look something like you're gonna give me Ken Walker and Brandon Ayuk, something like that, I'm gonna go, start 11. I could justify it, but that's really not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this pick like it is. Oh, you have Breece Hall. This is next year's Breece Hall, and that's how it's valued. It's going to be a 1-for-1 for a player that's in that range, and it's got to be very specific as to who I want. But, dude, if you hit on a top 2 pick, top 3 pick, and it's one of the classes, especially the names that are in next year's class, it's a top 2-round startup pick. It just is. So that's how you got to value. And if the league doesn't value it that way, I feel like these are ones you end up holding.
Yep.
Because if the league's not going to see it until it's too late, and then you're going to go, yep, this is what I tried to trade this pick to you last year, Adam. I would have given you a little bit of a discount because it was still ambiguous. Too late now. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. 102, and now it's, I need CD Lamb plus to get it, and people are going out too late.
That's the thing about the 103 next year, and I know that situations and players change, but listen, I feel very, very strong about Marvin Harrison Jr. and the 2 quarterbacks, like period. So I'm looking at secure, like very high dynasty value in these top 3 picks of this next year's class, especially. So I'm not trading that away. To your point, now it is start 11, so there's more ability to have Ayuk be very, very reasonable in your lineup. Yeah, cool, and same with Ken Walker. But none of these guys have this safe dynasty floor. It would not be shocking to see either one of those guys somehow, some way, whether it's even injury, whatever, they become out of favor with dynasty value. That pick does not have that scenario. So I need to get into like solidified high-end assets that also, even with injury, don't have a giant tank in value opportunity. Like if it's not that, I'm good. If you're not going to let me get into the top 10, 12 quarterbacks, you're not going to let me get into a very, very high wide receiver or, a Bijan, Gibbs, Breece type thing, I'm good. I'm good. I'm holding this pick, and you can miss me with the other stuff personally. Even in start 11, I'm good on that.
So let me ask you this real quick on that theme. If you're sitting on a top 3 pick, you're extremely confident.
Mm-hmm.
It's top 3. Are you even moving that pick for a Waddle or an Amon-Ra St. Brown, or is that even one where you're going, no, I'm good?
No,
I'm good.
Nope.
Because those guys are at a wide receiver 2 season from falling out of favor in Dynasty to where they're just a mid-first dart at that point, right? They don't hold the premium capital that would allow you. And it's not even the player you can get next year. It's if in January or February you're sitting on the 102 or the 103. The amount of flexibility you have if you need to reboot your roster, if you need to go make a big move at a position that's tough to find, it's real hard to go. But hey, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You interested in trading me a quarterback upgrade for that? And people are going, "Nah, I'm good. I'll wait till July or August to really look at where I tier the receivers." But there's no reason for me to bite on that in January or February. Whereas that 102, 103, it has a much bigger window, I think, to fire.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, I don't have to keep that pick that whole time and say, yeah, I'm going to ride Caleb Williams for forever on my team. That's not it, right? Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, people may say I'm just going to hold him for forever. You can handle it how you want to. The whole point is that at that point now, I have a asset that is so different than, like, Amon-Ra going into next year, he's not probably going to go that much higher. I love the guy. I really do. Like, I'm good with him on my start 11 teams, but this upside, there's, I think you said it best, there's probably 20 guys, including quarterbacks in Superflex, that pose that type of value and upside that other players just don't. So it's a very short list. Otherwise, I'm just going to hold the pick. So I basically would rather even attach to that to get into the truly elite range, or I would rather just hold the pick, honestly.
Well, you also have live odds that pick that you think's 103 ends up 101. And if you do that, I guarantee you didn't ask for enough.
Well, that's right? The thing. He says it's League Simulator 101, but it's locked into top 3. Scott, and that's the thing. If I have some teams where I have that pick, when I have that pick, there's only one thing I'm looking to do with it. Exploit it to the highest potential or hold it until the value accrues a crescendo. Those are the two things I'm looking to do there.
And you're probably looking at the top 7, 8, 9 quarterbacks as the floor of what you want to move it for.
Right.
And if you don't need a quarterback, there's probably less than 3 skill players you'd consider for it. So you've weeded down your pool to 8 to 10 players that is even starting the conversation. And at that point, you're probably just you're going to be forced to not trade it, right? Because most people are going to, I'm not giving you Trevor Lawrence for that random pick. And you're going, okay, I don't need that. I'll wait.
And I think the thing right now in July doing that is you also take away the window of opportunity you have for teams that don't even think they need the pick, don't think they care about it at all. Right. As we're pushing into the season, one of those teams is like, damn, it didn't go my way. All right, I'm gonna get that early first. You want it now? Come on. We're gonna break off some really high assets off your team, but you can come get this pick and you have a better opportunity for conversation of trading it then, That's I think that's one of the biggest things you can screw up in Dynasty. When you have that type of leverage, it's so hard to get that type of leverage. Don't sell light on it. All right, let's go. We'll do 2 more questions, Scott, and then we got to get out of here because we have some more recording to do. But McGonagall, I appreciate the super chat. Just a thank you for creating. I enjoy it all. We appreciate the super chat. We appreciate all you guys coming in here and watching. I'm not sure if it's got to be close. We're over 100 people, Scott. So everybody tapped in. Appreciate it. If it's not the highest, it's damn near the highest. So appreciate all the love and support on here, man. All right, Scott. This question was posed twice, so I'm going to put it in here for you. Why in the world should someone take Addison over Watson? Is it the 10-pick difference in draft capital?
I mean, I think there would be people that wouldn't necessarily take Addison over Watson. I don't know if he's asking, do you read this as he's trying to get us to explain if we would, or trying to understand why the consensus is that they would? I know the ADP slightly favors Addison, but I think they're truly in the range. I'm looking at right now, Addison's wide receiver 24, and actually I'm using DLF, wide receiver 24 for Addison and 20 for Watson.
Okay.
They're the same for me, honestly.
Yeah.
They're slightly different type of bets, but I don't think...
I'm looking at it right now on South Harmon ADP, which pulls from Sleeper API. We're looking at when the rookies have been entered in. There's 1,219 drafts that have taken place, right? These are real money leagues. Watson's the 504. Addison's the 508. They're literally, you're probably talking between all those drafts, they've been back and forth with each other, right? Some people take one or the other ahead. So, I think the question really, Scott, is that he thinks very clearly that it should be Watson over Addison. He's saying, why in the world would you take Addison? Meaning, Like, explain it to me why they're close. Explain it to me why you would take one or the other.
Well, we already hit on 3 guys earlier that I think Addison kind of portrays to be very similar to, if he hits what you think he will, is he kind of feels like he could be another Higgins or another Devontae Smith, right? Like he's going to be the beta guy on his roster. But I could also see Addison having a year where you're like, all right, he's still carved out 17, 20% target share on a team that's going to throw it 625 times. Like he can put up a good rookie year. And I think this is where the question starts to get a little bit deeper. We don't have time today, but this is why in this range, I typically will say I want exposure in my portfolio, but I don't want to be over leveraged on any receivers that kind of have these types of outcomes. Because you could also tell a story where Jordan Love's bad. They don't throw the ball a lot. Christian Watson kind of has like a Drake London type season where you're like, damn, that guy's good, but the fantasy points don't follow. So you know how the market's going to treat that if that happens versus if Addison goes out and puts up like a Smitty rookie here, how the market's going to like that. Now, will that stay going forward? Will people always say, well, Addison, because you're probably then hearing, well, Addison's probably capped for where he should go from a value perspective, right? But I'm looking at these for a short term. Can I see trajectories for one clearly over the other? And I can see it going both ways for either guy, which is probably why they're in this like quote unquote flat range of receivers to where I want exposure on both because I think both outcomes for either player could happen, but I don't want to be 10 Addison, 0 Watson, and I don't want to be 10 Watson, 0 Addison. So give me a couple of each. Maybe I have them on teams where I have Jordan Love, where I have my Watson, I have a couple Addison Cousins stacks, but they're aligned for a reason, and I have kind of limited exposure to both because I just don't see either one of them escaping the range that they're currently in, personally.
Scott, I appreciate the real answer. Apparently, this is receipt time, and this has nothing to do with you. So sorry for the shots fired at you. This is all about me, apparently. So let me just say this. I think if this is to that AMA, I remember when I was talking about Christian Watson in this regard. So I want to paint the picture because Scott, what you were talking about to me is where I think in this range, like there's a scenario where Watson ends up being really good and solid. And that probably requires Jordan Love to be good and the offense to be better than we expect. So, yeah, okay. In that scenario, does Watson go higher in value? I don't even know. Because here's the thing, Scott, in startups right now, I want to list to you the wide receivers going ahead of Christian Watson, and I want you to give me, outside of the really old ones that can obviously go down just because of value, who's he going to really jump realistically, even with a pretty good season? Devontae Adams at wide receiver 17, DK Metcalf, Drake London, JSN, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, right? That's my point, is that the upside now, because we've already seen a year of him with Rodgers, I don't know that there's like true elite upside outside of a rare scenario for him. And he could be that. Like, you can tell me you believe in him. I don't believe that's the case. But what I do think is that this year, if Love comes out and plays bad, the value insulation, honestly, is what you discussed there that worries me the most with Christian Watson. Because we saw him, and it's funny, man. You'll have to listen to this tomorrow. I just talked about this with Brandon for 40 that comes out tomorrow. Look at the beginning of his rookie year. He didn't do jack shit. And he was in and out of the lineup, and Romeo Doubs was supposedly the guy that's taken over this. He's got the chemistry with Rodgers and all that. Like, it took Watson a while to break out. Then he had a couple big games. Like, I see a scenario where if he doesn't play well and has a lot of these really not very good weeks, that he trends down. Like, that's a guy that going into year 3 loses a ton of value, where he had a boom or bust rookie year. His quarterback situation got worse and he didn't do well. Like, Jordan Addison to me is one of these receivers that feels very safe, and I know that it may feel like a cop-out, but his value insulation gets me to the table still of receivers I can pivot out of, where I think Christian Watson has more of a scenario of up, like not as much up, but a lot more down if things go wrong.
Name the players. I remember the ones you just said: JSN, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, and the fourth one was
Adams.
No, it wasn't Adams. The other, so it was Higgins, it was Metcalf, Drake London, and JSN.
And Cooper.
So I can get rid of Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams. They're a different type of evaluation than when you're looking at receivers that are 24 and under, right?
Fair.
But assuming all of those outputs are similar to where they're being drafted, right? So every one of those guys we just named, London, JSN, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Christian Watson, all kind of just stay the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I don't think a lot of people think about, and it really doesn't have anything to do with player analysis. Which one of those names stands out as the one that the community is not just a consensus hyped on or hasn't been on in the past?
This is
Christian Watson, right?
There's a comment in the chat that I had to put on. This is the point about value insulation that I think people sometimes miss. This is it, and what you're talking about is what I'm trying to get out. So I'm glad.
It takes a wild story to where people go, he's just clearly better than Jackson Smith and Jigba and Drake London. But I could also see where he outproduces them this year, and people go, it doesn't matter because of X, Y, and Z excuse for those guys.
Who does that feel like? How much did Amon-Ra St. Brown have to do to finally be there?
Yeah. And I'll just say this about Jordan Love. The numbers are not friendly on quarterbacks that have come in. Even though he's been there for 4 years, he had some pedigree. Some of the projections I see on both the efficiency and the volume for the Packers are wild. Whereas if you take a lot of these guys, even when they've sat for a couple years, I don't think you cannot come in and expect Jordan Love to either throw it at higher than just average volume and do so at more than average league efficiency. And if you just slap both of those onto Christian Watson, even if he does exactly what he does or did last year per game, per target, per route, whatever, where do you end up? You end up with a season that's right around wide receiver 18 to 25. And I'm telling you what, if Christian Watson's wide receiver 25 or wide receiver 20, his market is not going to a point where now you can go to the table and go get a top 6, 7, or 8 receiver. He just doesn't hold that name.
Right.
JSN does that. Watch out. You can go get any receiver in the league if you add to JSN. And that's unfair for Christian Watson, despite his draft capital. He just didn't come in with that name, and we have to you're working with an economy of other humans, man. They're going to attach their name to Jackson Smith-Njigba and Drake London, the name. Those guys get the benefit of the doubt. Christian Watson doesn't, like Five Meat Wad said, and that's unfair, but it's reality. And
that's why I think, like, I want to make sure that point is clear, because think about it this way, too. In a year from now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming to the league. There's going to be other 24 receivers that come in that people care about because they're young, right? So that influx always makes a guy like Christian Watson, who doesn't have the name cachet, went to a small school, people don't believe in as a whole, right? He's fighting an uphill battle, and then there's more receivers coming in every year. So he literally is like, he's got to be running uphill on the treadmill and outproducing probably what people think he really has in his cards, in my opinion, to even tread water. Like, I think he's going to have to play very well this year to even be in that same conversation, wide receiver 15 to 18 next year in startups. So like that's more my point. It's not like I actually was defending Christian Watson as a rookie, but there's a point where the value is past that for me, and that's the whole conversation with Christian Watson. And I think you hit it on the head. It's more the way players are valued with this type of draft capital and this pedigree and the community name, truthfully.
Well said.
All right, guys. Listen, we already went way over. I told Scott an hour tops. We're here an hour and 15. So I appreciate everyone tapping in. All the super chats were awesome. If you're here and you're a Dynasty Trades in 5 person, if you like what you saw here, give us a subscribe. Try us out. Scott and I have a lot of the same thoughts. We're doing a WoRP series that's coming out soon, Dynasty Mind WoRP. So stay tuned for that. But that's all I got, Scott. I'll say anything you want to plug before we get out of here.
No, man, you guys are awesome. Love coming on the AMA. I'd be fine coming back in whenever you want to have me to do this, because a lot of the people that watch your streams and follow your content, we run in the same circles. So, and we're getting our rapport together in terms of being able to podcast. Hint, hint. There's going to be more stuff coming from Adam and I. He already mentioned Mind Warped, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to plug. People know where to find me. Trades in 5, DD. If you're tapped into here, you know where to find the stuff. Nothing to plug.
Listen. See, that right there is what Scott does so well. Like, I want to get to the point one day where it's like, listen, I can go on a show and like, listen, you know where to find me. I'm not plugging my stuff. You know where to find me. That's what I want to get to one day. Scott's like, listen, Dynasty Trades in 5, Destination Dynasty. This is one of the guys, honestly, that does such great work, and it's been really fun having you on the AMA, man. I know everybody here enjoyed it. We got a lot of super chats, so everybody here, appreciate you guys tapping in. Thursday's a little odd day for us, but we'll see you back here next week when Mike's back. Hopefully his underdog draft went okay. He was pretty upset that I didn't answer his question. Apparently it was there and it was a slow draft. Hopefully he's all ready to go next week. But we'll see you back here next week for the AMA. I'm going to play Fizzle's video and hope that this time we get the audio. Love y'all. Peace. Do you believe in miracles? We got Fizzle in the house. Fizzle, what's good, man? Fizzle, glad to have you here.
Let's go. This the South Harmon Podcast. Glad you here today. Hit that Patreon link if you here to stay. Dynasty best ball, that's my favorite way. 40 chess trade show, let's make a trade today or check a AMA. You know Adam at the ATM. Mike always in the building, he gon' stay with him. They gon' start every show off with their own trade. Fantasy's a big ocean, they made their own wave. Make sure you tapping in Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesday night, Saturday morning, ain't no better way. Hit that notification bell when the news break. Go subscribe right now, don't get the news late. Destination Devy, that's the team. Dynasty Football, man, that's my favorite thing. I remember Biggie said it was all a dream. Now people watching on their phones and computer screens. Welcome to the team.